Welcome back, guys. This video is not being filmed chronologically. I'm actually at the end. I wanted to get the start video, the first engine start video, all in one. However, there were a bunch of steps and we'll kind of step through them as the video goes through, but it's not chronologically. Some of the first clips in this video will probably be almost 2 months old because I've had to wait for parts. But I just kind of wanted to tell the whole story of getting the car started. So with that, you may see things jump around in the background. I'm mid-exhaust right now. I'm working on a video for that, but we're not going to cover exhaust in this one. There is absolutely no exhaust on this, including no O2 sensor. So we'll get into that, but I really just run it for a few seconds. I just wanted to see it run, and I want you guys to see it run. So let's get into how things started. My son do most of the work, but I got this adapter for 3/8 NPT port that goes in this hose, 1.5" hose for the coolant temperature sensor. So that's plumbed in now. I considered tapping a hole in this and putting the coolant temperature sensor in there, but I really didn't like that because this is really only 1.25" here. It goes up to 1.5". And so temperature sensor adds more blockage to an already small, that's the smallest spot on the coolant system. So I decided against that. I am going to probably reroute this hose. I don't really like the way this thing's routed up here right now, but it's enough to get it started. So we will worry about some of this plumbing issue later. For right now, that's where we're at. Working on the coolant system and getting that sensor plumbed in, I got some brackets done and painted for the dash. The dash will mount up there, and then you already saw me 3D print one other thing, but I printed up this hood. So this is going to go on here, and then the Holley dash will fit inside of that, so that should keep the sun off, the glare down off the screen. So I already printed a little hood there. I am gonna probably
paint this with some black just to keep the sun off of it. I don't know how good this plastic is in lots of exposed sunlight, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw a coat of paint on it just to protect it from degrading. So we'll get that thrown in, and then we'll be able to mount and wire up that dash, and that'll be one more thing we can check off the list. Have the harnesses in hand that should allow me to get this thing started. So I'm hoping tonight, if everything goes well, I can actually get this motor fired for the first time. Dash mounted in there. I ran into a slight confusion, not really an issue, but had to do some research online, quite a bit of digging actually. The instructions are not clear at all about this wire harness that comes with the 7-inch dash. So apparently it has this can connector, 4-pin can connector, and this, I believe, is an older style 2-pin can connector, and then the other 2 leads are for power and ground. So if you have an older Holley system, you can connect this 7-inch dash to it, but if you have a brand new or a newer style Holley system, like mine's a Terminator X, it's probably many of the other EFI systems, there's a 4-pin can connector already in the harness, and so you don't need to use this. So this was a point of confusion because I kept trying to figure out where to plug this in. The instructions don't indicate that it's only used in some cases. So once I got online and found a forum post about it, I was able to sort that out. So that is all plugged in. I believe I got the rest of the Holley system plugged in as well. So we're pretty close to firing it up. Let me show you what this looks like. That is near perfect. This is about what it would look like from my point of view, and it sits nicely right in the window of the steering wheel. It's nice and close so I can touch it because it is a touch screen when I'm buckled in. So we should be ready to rock and roll with this. And we're about ready to turn this thing on. Okay. Now, I think everything's ready. If everything is, both the 3.5 and the 7-inch are hooked up, so these should come on. And I'm expecting some sort of wizard. I've never done this before. It might actually ask me to update the firmware because I did throw firmware on this SD card. So it might start there. We'll find out together. It is flashing firmware right now. Okay, it wants me to reboot. Power down. Power back up. Okay, now it's wanting to update the ECU firmware. ECU firmware upgrade failed. Okay, just as an update, this thing just keeps saying searching for ECU on the screen, and I'm not actually seeing any lights on this Terminator box at all. So I am seeing lights down here on the GDI controller. So here's where I'm at right now. I've got a couple of colored lights on the GDI controller. Really only the first 4 are lit. On the Terminator, it's upside down, but none of those lights are on. And then on the handheld, see if I can get it to focus. It's saying searching for ECU. I have taken the SD card out, so the first boot up, I did get firmware from Holley's website for both the 3.5-inch screen and the ECU, and it flashed this firmware, and it looked like it was starting to flash the Terminator firmware, but then it failed, and now it doesn't seem to find the ECU, so that's where I'm at. I'll also add that I did check the pins on the power harness going into the Terminator, and I've got a solid 14 volts, so that is getting power, and the switched 12 volts is up there, so that's getting power. Yeah, not sure right now. Okay, I figured it out. It does not like this 7-inch dash plugged in to the loop while you're trying to upgrade the firmware. So I plugged this directly into the main Holley wire harness and pulled the dash out. So the only thing I have going on right now is this. Usually what you've got is a daisy chain scenario where the dash plugs into the harness, and then this 3.5 plugs into a second connector coming out of this 7-inch dash. So now the 7-inch dash won't power up, but it properly finds the ECU at this point. So now we should be able to walk through this calibration wizard. Perform a TPS auto set before startup. Okay. No calibration loaded ECU. Please continue to run the wizard to load a calibration. Let's see. TPS auto set. Okay, start. TPS auto set successful. Alright, now let's do this wizard. This is direct injection. Data does not exist. Select injection type, direct injection. maybe we'll start over. By the way, if you hear that humming, that is the electric water pump up front. And that beep is the sound bar turning on. I think I probably should turn this off. There we go. Wizard. We want direct injection. Okay. Well, now let me get this up closer so you can see it. Boots up. Start the wizard. First is select injection type. This is a direct injection, Gen 5. I select that and I hit next. Next. It says data does not exist. And it seems to be stuck at that point. I can't continue, I can't hit back, can't get home. So, we pause again and do some more research. Well, I don't know at this point, and you saw the error, so I need to contact Holley tech support. I've tried looking online and can't really find any answers. The support for these Gen 5 LT motors is pretty sparse online. There's just not a lot of people that have done it and reported about it, so it's definitely a learning curve, but got a number of things marked off the list, and the last two things are really pretty simple. I need to really get through the wizard, and then the Terminator should turn on the fuel pump, and then once that's turned on, I can set the fuel pressure, and then I think I know where I'm going to mount that little 3.5 inch display, but I want to get through it getting started at this point. So there is some wiring in the interior, particularly in the passenger side, that I need to kind of tie up and out of the way, but I really want to get it started before I move to that next step and kind of know that things are working. So that's going to do it for this evening. Try and contact Holley tech support and get back to it when I can. Okay, couple things. I never got the wizard to work. I'm not getting any clear answers right now why that's not working, but I just went to kind of a standard tune for the Gen 5, made a couple of tweaks because this is not drive-by-wire, but I think it'll work, at least for an initial start. I also couldn't get the Holley to turn the relay on for the fuel pump because it's not wired directly, so this is brand new to me. I don't know why that's not working, so I just hardwired it directly to the fuse block for the on position, so it's just running constantly whenever the key is in the on position. I went ahead and set the fuel pressure. It's right at maybe 76, which it should be in that like 72, 75 range on the low side, and then the high pressure fuel pump driven by the cam does the rest for the direct injection. So I think we're good there. I have just a little, it's hard to see on camera, but a little minor leak here. So I've already put a wrench on it, but I don't know what's leaking. I might have bunged the AN fitting a little bit or something. I'll have to look at that, but it's just a pretty minor leak. So We are gonna grab a fire extinguisher just in case, and maybe try and turn the key and see what happens. Let's see what it does. I've got all green lights except it looks like 5 and 8, and I don't think those are used. I'll look at the manual. And then like 1 is a heartbeat, which that looks appropriate. And they appear to stay green. So I'll need to look and see what that means. And then I didn't really look at the GDI controller. I've got LED 1, which is a heartbeat, that's flashing. 2 is blue, 3 and 4 are green, and the rest are off. So I think I'm going to watch the GDI controller this time and see what that does. Well, nothing changed there and nothing changed there when it's cranking, so I'll maybe do some research and figure out what we've got here. Other thing to note is because of the slight interruption in power when I go from on to crank, this thing reboots. I don't know if that's an issue or not. I assume it's probably not, but I'll have to look into that a little bit. It is driven by power from the Terminator, which means that the Terminator may be seeing an interruption in power too when I move over. So I'm not sure how that might affect things. Okay. After looking at data logs on that first crank, it does not appear to be picking up any crank signal. No RPM is being reported, so I'm going to yank this starter and pull out the crank sensor and probably just go buy a new one and swap it in. So. Sensor is thrown in, so we'll see if anything changes here. I'm still not sure if we're dealing with cam position sensor or something in the tune. The wizard's not working on this thing right now. I still need to try and call Holley and see if I can figure that out. But I started with kind of a standard tune for an L86, made a couple changes for the fact that I have a cable-driven throttle body, so it has an IAC and a TPS, which drive-by-wire does not. So I think I made the appropriate changes based on the base tune. So we'll see if at least
starts to crackle to life here. Showing any RPM. Okay, as an update for you guys, I spent a couple of hours on the phone with Holley working through the issues, trying to upgrade the firmware unsuccessfully several times, and as you saw earlier, that wizard just isn't going to work. And kind of the last try, it seems like maybe the ECU is bricked at this point, because LEDs were lighting on the ECU before. Now they are not after the last firmware try. So Holley is going to send me a return label, and I am sending both the screen and the ECU back so they can take a look at them, figure out what's going on, and we'll go from there. So this gets sent back. Hopefully it'll come back relatively soon. I might have a bell housing before then. We'll see. So I'll update you as soon as I have more information. Given the challenges we've had thus far with the ECU, I didn't mount it. I just plugged it in now that we have it, so it's just kind of resting there. And in the interim, I've had a couple of thoughts on the setup here. One of the main things is I think I'm going to use one of the outputs for the electric water pump. Right now it's just hardwired in to come on as soon as I turn this key on, which means you hear it. You'll hear it in the video. I hear it all the time. And there really isn't a need for it to come on and pull power when we're trying to crank on the engine or when it's just sitting. So I should be able to set it up to an output and really only have it come on if the engine RPM is, let's say, above 600 or something like that. So it shouldn't even come on during cranking. There's no need for it to be on during cranking, just when the motor's running. So that's a thought there. But I do have everything plugged in, so I think I'm gonna attempt yet again to go through this wizard. I haven't even turned anything on, so I'm not even sure what firmware we're on right now, because I don't remember from the last time I turned this on, and if the firmware is the same between the handheld and the ECU. So it seems to have taken a firmware update, and this thing seems to be coming back on, so let me turn it on and show you. You can see lights, and it boots up. So we're gonna run through this, hopefully. Please run the wizard or load a calibration. Okay. Before TPS auto set. So we're gonna go and do that. Let's see here. Wizards. Let's do the TPS auto set. Start. Slowly pass. And let go. Slowly press. And let go. Next. Successful. Now the GCF wizard. Direct injection. Hey, we didn't get to this part before. Next, 8 cylinders. We want cubic inches. And this is 376. Next, target idle speed. Let's go for 800. I don't actually know what it should be. I'll play with that later. camshaft. I am going to go ahead and finish this wizard off screen because I actually need to look at the phone to look at my camshaft specs. So I went through the wizard. The one thing that I'm not sure of is I have the OEM map sensor and the intake manifold off of the LT2. The map sensor options were only the Holley one or an LS3 or an LS4, or not LS4, but Gen 3 and Gen 4. They didn't have a Gen 5 map sensor. I'm hoping it's the same thing, so I selected the Gen 4, which said 2005 plus, and it didn't have a top year, so I'm hoping that is the right one. And finish the wizard. So we are gonna attempt to at least start it and run it for a few seconds. I have not finished the exhaust yet, so there's no O2 sensor, which means it won't be able to do any learning or adjust, but we should be able to at least fire it off and let it run for a couple of seconds. There is coolant in the engine, so let's see what happens. Yes! Yes! Gonna be driving soon! I am super excited. Was dancing around the garage a little bit. It's just a good feeling to hear this engine run. It actually isn't terribly loud, even though the headers just dump straight to the floor. It's not as loud as I was expecting. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is loud. I wouldn't want to drive around that way, but it's not as loud as I was expecting. So once I get these cherry bombs on there and an X pipe and some exhaust pushing out the back, it should quiet down reasonably. So I'm really pumped about that. Super excited to see it start. In the next video, we're going to work on getting the exhaust on this, and then we can start it and let it warm up and check fluids and make sure nothing's leaking. I already think I see a slight oil leak at one of the AN fittings for the oil accumulator, so we'll probably have to address that, but it's very, very slight, so it may just be residual oil, or I just need to tighten that fitting down. Anyhow, thanks for watching, guys. I'm glad you're along for the ride. I'm glad I get this car started, and I'm ready to get it back out there on the autocross and on the roads, on the road course. So stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching.